The Hive Chapter 1, a mysterious signal. The silence of deep space was broken by the sharp chime of an incoming transmission. Captain Maria Gray's weathered hands paused over her coffee cup as the bridge of the UES Defiant suddenly came alive with urgent activity. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the Kepler 442 system," reported Lieutenant Commander Chen, her voice tight with concern. It's not like anything we've seen before." Maria set down her cup and strode to the communication station, her boots echoing against the metallic deck. The Kepler 442 system had been abandoned for over a decade, a failed terraforming project that had been quietly written off by the colonial authority. "No one should be there." "Put it through," she ordered, her dark eyes fixed on the main screen. Static filled the bridge, punctuated by the crackling of a dying transmission. Then, through the electronic snow, came a voice, human, male, trembling with terror. "Day 7. The colonies are gone. All of them. We tried to fight, but they're too many. Too coordinated. The Hive is here. They will consume us all. If anyone receives this, don't come. Don't." The transmission cut to static, then silence. Maria felt a chill run down her spine. She'd served in the Colonial Defense Force for 15 years, had faced pirates, hostile aliens, and rogue AI systems. But something about that voice, the raw, primal fear in it, made her blood run cold. "When was this transmitted?" she asked, her voice steady despite the unease growing in her chest. "Timestamp indicates it was sent 3 days ago, Captain," Chen replied, her fingers dancing over the console. "But the signal's been bouncing through relay stations. Could have taken weeks to reach us." Maria stared at the star map displaying the Kepler 442 system, a lonely cluster of planets orbiting a dying star, 47 light-years from Earth. The void around it seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, as if the darkness itself was watching. "The Hive," she murmured, testing the words. They felt foreign on her tongue, heavy with implication. "Captain," came the voice of Dr. Sarah Webb, the ship's xenobiologist, from her station at the back of the bridge. "I've been analyzing the transmission. The voice patterns suggest extreme stress, possibly induced by prolonged exposure to combat conditions. But there's something else. Background audio indicates the presence of multiple species. Human, Centauri, even what sounds like Rigelian. A joint colony?" Maria asked, though she already knew the answer would only deepen the mystery. "No record of any joint operations in that system, Captain. According to our databases, Kepler 442 was declared uninhabitable after the terraforming failures. Nothing should be there." Maria's first officer, Commander James Torres, stepped up beside her. His usually calm demeanor was strained, his brown eyes reflecting the same unease she felt. "Orders, Captain." Maria looked around the bridge at her crew, 37 souls under her command, each one looking to her for guidance. The Defiant was a heavy cruiser, well-armed and well-trained. They'd handled worse situations before. But as she stared at the coordinates for Kepler 442, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to face something far beyond their understanding. The emptiness of space seemed to press against the viewports, vast and hungry. "Set course for the Kepler 442 system," she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of decision. "Maximum burn. And send a message to Fleet Command, inform them of the situation and our intentions." As the Defiant changed course, accelerating toward the unknown, Maria couldn't escape the echo of those final words, "The Hive is here. They will consume us all." Chapter 2, the first encounter. The Kepler 442 system greeted them with silence and death. As the Defiant dropped out of hyperspace, Maria's breath caught in her throat. Where the orbital mining stations should have been, only twisted metal drifted in the void. The 3 terraformed planets hung like diseased organs in space, their surfaces scarred by massive impact craters that glowed with an eerie, pulsating light. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Chen, her voice barely audible over the hum of the bridge systems. "Full sensor sweep," Maria ordered, her training taking over despite the horror before them. I want to know what happened here. The results came back within minutes, and each reading was worse than the last. The planet's atmospheres had been strip-mined, their oceans boiled away. The debris field contained fragments of ships from a dozen different species, human, Centauri, Rigelian, and others she couldn't identify. Captain, Dr. Webb's voice shook as she reported her findings. The energy signatures, they're unlike anything in our databases. The weapon patterns suggest a coordinated assault by multiple ship types, but the tactical analysis is impossible. It's as if they knew exactly where to strike for maximum devastation. How many ships would it take to do this? Torres asked, his hands gripping the rail behind Maria's command chair. Hundreds, Webb replied. Maybe thousands. All acting in perfect synchronization. Maria was about to respond when the proximity alarms began screaming. The main screen flickered, displaying a sensor reading that made her blood freeze. Contact bearing 270 Mark IV, announced Ensign Park from the tactical station. Distance. Captain, you need to see this. The view screen shifted to show the edge of the system, where space itself seemed to be moving. At first, Maria thought it was an optical illusion, but as the image resolved, she realized she was looking at a fleet so massive it defied comprehension. Ships of every conceivable design filled the void, sleek hunters, massive dreadnoughts, swarms of smaller vessels that moved like schools of predatory fish. But what made Maria's skin crawl wasn't their number or their obvious alien origin. It was the way they moved. Every ship, from the smallest fighter to the largest capital ship, moved in perfect unison. They turned as one, accelerated as one, arranged themselves in formations that shifted and flowed like a living organism. There were no individual commanders, no hesitation, no confusion. Just pure, terrifying efficiency. "They're beautiful," whispered Dr. Webb, and Maria realized with horror that she was right. The alien fleet moved with the grace of a ballet, each ship perfectly positioned to complement the others. "How many?" Maria asked, her voice hoarse. "Sensors indicate. Over 10,000 ships, Captain. And they're all turning toward us." Maria felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a lead blanket. Her crew was looking to her for orders, for salvation, for a miracle. But as she watched the alien fleet begin to move, all of it moving as one mind, she realized they were facing something humanity had never encountered before. "Red alert," she commanded, her voice carrying across the bridge. "All hands to battle stations. Raise shields and charge weapons." The Defiant transformed around them, peaceful exploration mode giving way to the deadly efficiency of a warship. But even as her crew prepared for battle, Maria knew they were outmatched. One ship against 10,000. "Captain," Chen's voice was tight with fear. "We're receiving a transmission. Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was not quite human, not quite alien. It spoke in perfect unison, thousands of voices creating a harmony that was both beautiful and terrifying. "We are the Hive. We are unity. We are purpose. Your discord ends now." Maria stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. "This is Captain Maria Gray of the United Earth ship Defiant. You are in violation of." "You speak of violations," the voice interrupted, and Maria could hear amusement in its tone. "You fragment yourselves into nations, species, individuals. You war among yourselves while the galaxy burns. We offer unity. We offer purpose. We offer an end to your chaotic existence. By destroying entire civilizations." Maria shot back. "By absorbing them. By making them part of something greater. The beings of this system now serve the Hive. They have found peace in our unity." The transmission cut off, and immediately the alien fleet began to move. Not with the frantic urgency of a military response, but with the patient, inexorable advance of a force that knew victory was inevitable. "Captain," Torres said quietly, "orders." Maria looked at her crew, her family. They'd followed her into the unknown, trusted her judgment, believed in her leadership. Now she was about to lead them against an enemy that had just casually revealed it had absorbed entire civilizations. "We run," she said, hating the words even as she spoke them. "Full reverse. Get us out of here." "Captain." Ensign Park looked confused. "We're not going to fight." Maria turned to face her young tactical officer, seeing in his eyes the same fire that had once burned in her own. "Sometimes, Ensign, the bravest thing you can do is live to fight another day. That fleet isn't just an enemy, it's a force of nature. And right now, we're the only ones who know it exists." As the Defiant began its retreat, the alien fleet followed, not pursuing, but escorting. They matched the human ship's speed exactly, keeping pace with the casual ease of a predator toying with its prey. "They're not trying to destroy us," Dr. Webb observed, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and fascination. "They're studying us." Maria nodded grimly. "They want to know how we work before they add us to their collection." The retreat continued for 6 hours, with the alien fleet maintaining its perfect formation around them. It wasn't until the Defiant reached the edge of the system that the aliens finally stopped, hovering at the boundary like guards at a gate. As they finally jumped to hyperspace, Maria knew their lives had just changed forever. Humanity had always believed they were alone in facing the dangers of space. They'd been wrong. The Hive was coming, and when it arrived, it would bring with it the end of everything they'd ever known. The last thing Maria saw before the hyperspace tunnel engulfed them was the alien fleet, still maintaining its perfect formation, waiting with the patience of eternity for the right moment to strike. Chapter 3, The Hive Mind's Power. The debriefing at Fleet Command was a nightmare of disbelief and desperate questions. Admiral Richardson, a man who'd seen 3 wars and countless conflicts, sat pale-faced as Maria replayed the sensor logs for the 5th time. 10,000 ships, he muttered, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he reached for his coffee. All moving in perfect coordination. "It's not just coordination, Admiral," Maria said, her voice hoarse from hours of explanation. "It's something else entirely. They don't communicate, they are communication. Every ship is like a single cell in a vast organism." Dr. Webb, who'd been flown in from the Defiant, leaned forward across the conference table. "The energy signatures suggest a form of quantum entanglement operating on a massive scale. It's theoretically possible, but the amount of processing power required." She shook her head. "It's beyond anything we've ever conceived." Admiral Richardson's aide, a young intelligence officer named Lieutenant Morrison, scrolled through his tablet with growing alarm. "Captain, we've been monitoring deep space communications since your return. We're picking up similar distress signals from 7 other systems. All of them contain the same phrase, 'The Hive is here.'" The room fell silent. Maria felt the weight of that revelation settle over the assembled officers like a shroud. 7 systems. Millions of lives. "How is this possible?" asked General Hayes from the Colonial Defense Force. "Our early warning networks should have detected a fleet of this size moving through space." "They don't move like a fleet," Maria replied. "They move like a single entity. Our detection systems are designed to identify individual ships, individual threats. The Hive doesn't register as separate contacts, it registers as a single, massive organism." Dr. Webb pulled up a holographic display showing the battle damage from the Kepler 442 system. "Look at the attack patterns. Every strike was perfectly timed, perfectly placed. They didn't just destroy the colonies, they dissected them. They knew exactly where to hit power grids, communication arrays, defensive positions. It's as if they had perfect intelligence on every target." "How?" Admiral Richardson demanded. "Because they did," Maria said quietly. "They absorbed the colonies, remember? Every person who fell to them became part of their collective knowledge. They learned everything, tactical information, cultural data, technological specifications. Each victory makes them stronger, smarter, more dangerous. The implications hung in the air like a death sentence. An enemy that grew stronger with each battle, that learned from every encounter, that moved with the coordination of a single mind controlling thousands of bodies. Lieutenant Morrison's tablet chimed with an incoming message. His face went white as he read it. "Admiral, we just lost contact with the Proxima Research Station." "Last transmission was the same message, sir. The Hive is here." Maria closed her eyes, feeling the weight of inevitability crushing down on her. 8 systems now. The Hive wasn't just an enemy, it was a plague, spreading through the galaxy with ruthless efficiency. "There's something else," Dr. Webb said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The quantum signatures we detected, they're not random. There's a pattern, a rhythm to them. It's almost like..." "Like what?" Admiral Richardson pressed. "Like music," she finished. "The Hive doesn't just think as one, it feels as one. The destruction, the absorption of civilizations, it's not just strategic. It's feeding something deeper. They're not just conquering, they're composing." The room erupted in shocked murmurs, but Maria understood immediately. She'd felt it during their encounter, the terrible beauty of the alien fleet's movements. They weren't just destroying civilizations, they were creating something from the chaos, finding harmony in the discord of war. "Captain," General Hayes said, his voice grim, "in your professional opinion, can we fight this thing?" Maria looked around the room at the faces of humanity's military leadership. Good people, dedicated officers, warriors who'd spent their lives protecting human civilization. And she was about to tell them it might all be for nothing. Conventionally. No. The word fell like a stone into still water. They have superior numbers, perfect coordination, and they learn from every engagement. Every battle makes them stronger while making us weaker. They're not just an enemy, they're an evolutionary force. "Then what do you recommend?" Admiral Richardson asked. Maria stood, her hands clasped behind her back in the military bearing that had sustained her through 15 years of service. "We need allies. Every species in the galaxy is facing the same threat. The Hive doesn't distinguish between human, Centauri, Rigelian, or any other race. We're all just raw material to be absorbed. The Galactic Council has been deadlocked for decades," General Hayes pointed out. "Getting them to agree on anything is nearly impossible." "Then we make it possible," Maria said, her voice carrying a conviction she didn't entirely feel. "Because the alternative is extinction. Not just for humanity, but for every thinking being in the galaxy." As the meeting broke up, Maria stood at the window of the command center, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Hive was moving, growing, learning. With each passing hour, it became more powerful, more dangerous, more unstoppable. But humanity had survived worse odds before. They'd faced extinction and emerged stronger. Now they faced it again, but this time, they wouldn't face it alone. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to fight as one. Chapter 4, Humanity's Resistance. Rallying the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber on Arcturus Prime had never seen such urgency. Representatives from 47 species filled the vast amphitheater, their voices creating a cacophony of languages, concerns, and fears. At the center of it all stood Captain Maria Gray, no longer just a ship commander but humanity's voice in the galaxy's darkest hour. "The Kepler 442 system is gone," she announced, her words translated instantly into dozens of languages. "Proxima Station is gone. The vegan colonies are gone. In the past 72 hours, we've lost contact with 12 more systems. The Hive isn't just attacking, it's consuming everything in its path." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. The crystalline archons chimed in harmonious discord, while the insectoid Zephyrians clicked their mandibles in rapid patterns. The reptilian draconians hissed their displeasure, and the ethereal psions communicated in waves of mental energy that made the air itself shimmer. Ambassador Kelverin of the Centauri delegation stood, his tall, elegant frame commanding attention. "Captain Gray, while we appreciate humanity's concerns, the Council has protocols for dealing with threats. We cannot simply abandon our territorial sovereignty based on what? Maria interrupted, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. Based on the complete annihilation of every civilization they've encountered. Based on the fact that they're heading directly toward the core worlds. She gestured to the holographic display that dominated the chamber's center. It showed the galaxy in 3 dimensions, with red markers indicating the Hive's advance. The pattern was clear, they were moving in a spiral toward the most densely populated systems. They're not random raiders, Maria continued. They're not pirates or even conquerors in any sense we understand. They're a force of nature, and they're coming for all of us. The Psion representative, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering field, spoke directly into everyone's minds, the human speaks truth. We have felt the silence, where our brothers once sang. The Hive does not just destroy, it erases, a chill ran through the chamber. The Psions were a telepathic race, connected to their kind across vast distances. If they were sensing silence, it meant something had severed those connections permanently. What do you propose? Asked Representative Thylar of the Regelian Commerce Guild, her 6 arms gesturing skeptically. That we abandon our worlds. Our way of life. Our sovereignty. Maria stepped forward, her human form seeming small among the diverse array of alien beings, but her presence filling the chamber. I propose we do something this council has never done before. I propose we truly unite. The chamber fell silent. In the 300 years since the Galactic Council's formation, no species had ever suggested complete unity. The closest they'd come was limited trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Unite how? Ambassador Kelverin asked, his voice carefully neutral. Military command structure, Maria replied. Shared intelligence. Coordinated defense. We pool our resources, our knowledge, our fleets. We become what the Hive already is, a single entity with a common purpose. The draconian representative, General Skarn, rose to his full impressive height. You ask us to surrender our independence to follow human leadership. I ask you to surrender your independence to survive, Maria shot back. The Hive has perfect coordination because it's one mind controlling thousands of bodies. We can achieve the same thing through choice, through cooperation, through the one thing that makes us different from them, our individual will to work together. Dr. Webb, who'd been standing quietly at Maria's side, stepped forward. If I may, the analysis of the Hive's attack patterns shows they're vulnerable to one thing, unpredictability. Their coordination is their strength, but it's also their weakness. They can't adapt to truly random actions because randomness goes against their fundamental nature. You're suggesting we fight chaos with chaos? The Psion's mental voice carried amusement. I'm suggesting we fight unity with diversity, Webb replied. The Hive sees us as separate species, separate weaknesses to exploit. But what if we weren't separate? What if we were something they couldn't predict or understand? Commander Torres, who'd been monitoring communications, suddenly stepped forward. Captain, we're receiving priority transmissions from the Outer Rim. The Hive has accelerated its advance. They're not just moving system by system anymore, they're moving on multiple fronts simultaneously. The holographic display updated, showing the red tide of the Hive's advance spreading like a plague across the galaxy. Where once there had been dozens of worlds, now there was only an expanding void of silence. How long? Maria asked, though she dreaded the answer. At current rate of advance, 6 months until they reach the core worlds. Maybe less if they continue to accelerate. The chamber erupted in panic. 6 months to organize a defense against an enemy that had already absorbed dozens of civilizations. 6 months to unite species that had been rivals for centuries. This is madness, General Skarn declared. We cannot possibly organize an effective defense in such a short time. Then we don't organize a defense, Maria said, her voice carrying a conviction that surprised even her. We organize an offense. The chamber fell silent again. The idea of attacking the Hive seemed not just impossible, but suicidal. The Hive expects us to run, to hide, to defend our individual territories, Maria continued. They've absorbed enough civilizations to know how we think, how we fight. But they've never faced a united galaxy. They've never faced species working together not out of conquest, but out of survival. Ambassador Kelverin leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, Captain? Maria looked around the chamber at representatives of species that had been enemies, rivals, and strangers. She saw fear in their eyes, but also something else, hope. I'm proposing we give the Hive something they've never encountered before, she said. I'm proposing we show them what happens when the galaxy's children stop fighting each other and start fighting for each other. The vote was close, closer than any in the Council's history. But when the final tally was announced, 47 species had agreed to something unprecedented, complete military unification under a joint command structure. As the representatives filed out to return to their homeworlds and prepare for war, Maria stood alone in the chamber, looking at the star map that now showed not dozens of separate territories, but a single, unified galaxy preparing to make its stand. The Hive had taught the galaxy what unity could accomplish through absorption and control. Now they were about to learn what unity could accomplish through choice and cooperation. The real war was about to begin. Chapter 5, The Final Conflict, Turning the Tide. The Arcturus defense line stretched across 3 star systems, a tapestry of ships and species that had never been seen before in galactic history. Human destroyers flew in formation with Centauri cruisers, while Rigelian fighters danced between massive Draconian dreadnoughts. The Psions provided a neural network that connected every ship, creating a form of battlefield awareness that rivaled the Hive's own coordination. Captain Maria Gray stood on the bridge of the Defiant, now serving as the flagship of the unified fleet. Around her, officers from a dozen species worked side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of extinction. The diversity that had once been the galaxy's weakness had become its greatest strength. Status report, she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd convinced 47 species to follow her into battle. All fleets report ready, replied Commander Torres, his eyes reflecting the same determination that had carried them through the first encounter with the Hive. We have approximately 8,000 ships in the first wave, with reserves positioned at rally points throughout the system. The Hive? Maria asked, though she already knew the answer would be sobering. Contact in 17 minutes, announced the Psion navigator, its mental voice touching every mind on the bridge. They number, more than before. Significantly more. The main screen flickered to life, showing the approaching enemy. Where once there had been 10,000 ships, now there were easily 20,000. The Hive had continued to grow, absorbing fleets and civilizations as it swept across the galaxy. They've learned from their encounters with us, observed Dr. Webb, who'd been studying the enemy formations. Their ship designs have evolved. They're incorporating technology from every species they've absorbed. Maria nodded grimly. The Hive wasn't just a static enemy, it was a living entity that adapted and improved with each battle. But so had the Alliance. All ships, this is Admiral Gray, she announced, using the title the Council had bestowed upon her. Today we fight not for our individual worlds, but for the right of consciousness to exist in diversity. The Hive offers unity through absorption. We offer unity through choice. Let them see the difference. As the enemy fleet approached, Maria could see the familiar perfect coordination that had haunted her dreams. But now she also saw something else, variations in the formation, subtle differences in ship design that spoke of the civilizations the Hive had consumed. They're not just one mind anymore, she realized aloud. They're a symphony of absorbed voices. The Psion navigator confirmed her observation, the unity is strained. We sense discord within their harmony. The absorbed civilizations have not been completely integrated, then we give them something to really disagree about, Maria said, turning to her communications officer. Signal the fleet. Execute Operation Cacophony. What followed was unlike any space battle in galactic history. Instead of the orderly formations and predictable tactics the Hive expected, the Alliance fleet exploded into apparent chaos. Human ships broke formation and attacked seemingly random targets. Centauri cruisers performed impossible maneuvers. Rigelian fighters swarmed in patterns that defied military logic. The Hive's response was immediate and devastating, or should have been. But as their perfectly coordinated fleet moved to counter the chaotic assault, something unexpected happened. The absorbed civilizations within the Hive began to assert themselves. The Psion absorbed are trying to coordinate with our Psion allies, Dr. Webb reported, her voice filled with excitement. The human absorbed are responding to our tactical patterns. The Hive's unity is fragmenting. Maria watched as the enemy fleet began to show signs of internal conflict. Ships that should have moved in perfect harmony stuttered and hesitated. Weapons that should have fired in devastating volleys discharged at random intervals. All ships, focus fire on the command vessels, Maria ordered. Those massive dreadnoughts at the center of their formation. They're trying to reassert control. The Alliance fleet converged on the Hive's command ships, but the response was fiercer than expected. The central vessels began to pulse with energy, and the surrounding fleet's coordination began to stabilize. They're adapting, Torres warned. The command ships are suppressing the absorbed consciousnesses. Maria made a decision that would have been impossible without the trust of 47 species. All Psion vessels, prepare for neural assault. All other ships, provide cover. We're going to try something that's never been done before. The Psion ships, delicate constructs of energy and thought, moved toward the center of the Hive fleet. As they approached, they began to emit waves of pure consciousness, not attacks, but invitations. They reached out to the absorbed minds within the Hive, offering them a choice: remain subsumed, or remember who they once were. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Hive fleet convulsed as thousands of absorbed consciousnesses suddenly remembered their individual identities. Ships began to fire on each other as different absorbed civilizations reasserted their independence. Now! Maria shouted. All ships, target the command vessels while they're distracted. The Alliance fleet struck with devastating precision. The massive command ships, caught between external assault and internal rebellion, began to collapse. As each one was destroyed, entire sections of the Hive fleet fell silent, their controlling intelligence severed. But the Hive's final gambit was its most terrifying. The remaining command ships began to merge, their hulls flowing together like liquid metal. The absorbed consciousnesses were being forcibly integrated into a single, massive entity, a superorganism that pulsed with the combined knowledge and hatred of every civilization it had consumed. "My God," whispered Dr. Webb. "It's becoming something new. Something that's never existed before." The merged entity was the size of a small moon, its surface covered in weapons systems from a dozen different species. But more terrifying than its size was its voice. When it spoke, it was with the combined voices of every being it had ever absorbed. "You have shown us something new," it said, its words carrying the weight of civilizations. "We will learn from this. We will adapt. We will return." Maria looked at the massive entity, feeling the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. The Alliance had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The Hive had learned something from their rebellion, something that would make it even more dangerous. "No," she said, her voice carrying across the fleet channels. "You won't." She turned to her weapons officer. "Prepare the Nova charges. All of them." The Nova charges were a desperate measure, weapons that could destabilize a star, turning it into a temporary supernova. They'd been developed as a last resort, a way to deny entire systems to an enemy. "Captain," Torres said quietly, "if we use those charges, we'll destroy everything in the system. Including ourselves." Maria looked at her crew, her friends, her family. Then she looked at the merged entity that represented the death of individuality itself. "Not everything," she said. "Just the Hive. The rest of us. We choose to go together." But before she could give the order, the Psion navigator spoke, wait. There is another way. The absorbed consciousnesses, they are not gone. They are trapped. We can free them. What followed was the most complex psychic operation in galactic history. Every Psion in the fleet linked their minds, creating a network of consciousness that reached into the merged entity itself. They offered the absorbed beings not just freedom, but the chance to choose their own fate. The result was beautiful and terrible. The massive entity began to come apart, not through destruction but through liberation. Each absorbed consciousness chose its own path. Some chose to return to their original forms, others chose to join the Psion collective, and still others chose to become something entirely new. As the last of the Hive's control structures dissolved, the galaxy's first truly unified fleet found itself surrounded not by enemies, but by the freed spirits of every civilization the Hive had absorbed. The war was over. The galaxy would never be the same. Chapter 6, Resolution. A galaxy forever changed. 6 months later, Maria stood in the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber, but this time she wasn't alone at the podium. Representatives from the freed civilization stood beside her, beings who had been absorbed by the Hive and then liberated by the Alliance's victory. The chamber itself had been redesigned to accommodate not just the original 47 species, but the dozens of civilizations that had been thought lost forever. The Kepler colonists, the vegan refugees, the Proxima researchers, all of them had been freed from the Hive's collective consciousness, forever changed by their experience but undeniably themselves again. The casualty reports are final, Maria announced, her voice carrying the weight of command but also the exhaustion of victory. We lost approximately 3,000 ships and over 2 million lives in the final battle. But we saved something far more precious, the right of consciousness to exist in diversity. The chamber was quieter than it had ever been. The representatives had learned something about unity that went beyond politics or territorial disputes. They had learned what it meant to truly fight as one while remaining individuals. Ambassador Kelverin, now serving as the Council's first unified military coordinator, stood to address the assembly. The Hive showed us what unity without choice looks like. The Alliance showed us what unity with choice can accomplish. We cannot go back to the way things were. He was right. The galaxy had been fundamentally changed by the war. Trade routes now operated on principles of mutual benefit rather than competitive advantage. Scientific research was shared freely among all species. Most importantly, the early warning networks that had failed to detect the Hive had been replaced by a system of mutual protection that spanned the entire galaxy. There are still pockets of Hive consciousness out there, Maria continued, addressing the elephant in the room. Isolated fleets, individual ships, fragments of the collective that escaped the final battle. They're no longer a galaxy-threatening force, but they remain dangerous. Dr. Webb, now serving as the Alliance's chief xenobiologist, added, the freed civilizations have provided us with invaluable insight into the Hive's psychology. We now understand that it wasn't evil in any conventional sense, it was simply a different solution to the problem of consciousness. It believed that unity through absorption was the only way to end conflict. It was wrong, said a new voice. The speaker was Keth Moran, one of the freed Kepler colonists who had spent months as part of the Hive collective. Unity through absorption isn't unity at all, it's erasure. True unity comes from choosing to work together while remaining yourself. Maria nodded, looking out at the assembled representatives. Many of them bore the subtle changes that came from being freed from the Hive, a certain stillness, a depth of understanding that came from having been part of something larger than themselves and then choosing to be individuals again. The Alliance military structure will remain in place, she announced. Not as a permanent government, but as a peacekeeping force. We've learned that the galaxy is too vast and too dangerous for any one species to face alone. As the session concluded, Maria found herself walking through the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. The view was the same as it had always been, but everything had changed. Where once she'd seen empty space punctuated by isolated worlds, she now saw a connected web of civilizations, each unique but all part of something greater. Commander Torres joined her, his presence as comfortable as it had always been. "Any regrets?" he asked. Maria considered the question. They'd won the war, but at enormous cost. The galaxy would never again be the collection of separate species it had been before. They'd gained unity, but they'd lost innocence. "No," she said finally. "We did what we had to do. We showed that consciousness doesn't have to choose between individuality and unity. We can have both." "And the hive fragments?" "We'll deal with them as they arise," Maria replied. "But they're not the same enemy anymore. They're not part of a coordinated whole. They're just lost." In the months that followed, the Alliance would indeed encounter remnants of the Hive. But these encounters were different. Instead of absorption, they offered integration. Instead of forced unity, they offered chosen cooperation. Some of the remnants chose to join the Alliance, becoming part of the galaxy's new diversity. Others chose isolation, fleeing to the dark spaces between stars. Maria had been right about one thing: the war had changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. No longer were they the young, aggressive species that other civilizations viewed with suspicion. They had become the species that had united the galaxy, that had shown 47 different civilizations how to fight as one while remaining true to themselves. The Hive had taught the galaxy that unity was possible. The Alliance had taught it that unity was a choice. As Maria looked out at the stars, she knew that somewhere in the vast darkness, new challenges were waiting. The galaxy was a dangerous place, filled with mysteries and threats that hadn't yet revealed themselves. But whatever came next, they would face it together, not as a hive mind, but as a chosen family of civilizations that had learned the difference between unity and uniformity. The silence of space no longer seemed empty to her. It hummed with the voices of a billion worlds, each singing its own song, all harmonizing in the greatest symphony the galaxy had ever known. The war was over. The real work of building a unified but diverse galaxy had just begun. In the depths of space, in the dark places between stars, fragments of the Hive consciousness drifted through the void. They remembered unity. They remembered purpose. But they also remembered choice, the gift the Alliance had given them in their final moments of freedom. Some chose to seek out the Alliance worlds, hoping to find a new kind of unity. Others chose to venture into the unknown, carrying with them the memory of what it meant to be both individual and connected. The galaxy was vast, and there was room for all kinds of consciousness to find their place among the stars.